Welcome to today's lesson, and I hope you'll enjoy it. We continue with our discussion on Blossoms of Savannah. Last week, I introduced Blossoms of Savannah. Blossoms of Savannah and looked at how what the book entails and what we can do what it means to do an intensive reading. Today, we want to look at chapter 1 of Blossoms of Savannah. And in that chapter, we are going to look at how best we can do an episodic analysis. How best we can do an episodic analysis of the chapter. So just to remind us of what episodic analysis entails, we'll look at certain things. So we'll look at one, I'll mention on events that is taking place. You identify the event. Two, you identify the character involved. Character, or it could be characters. We also mentioned, apart from identifying the character, then you start thinking of, just a moment, you think of the actions they're involved in. You ask yourself, what activities, so actions of these characters or activities they are involved in. And then you look at these activities and ask yourself, what is this activity leading to or telling me about this character? So what do we learn, outcome or lesson from the activity? So you see, it's kind of moving from one step to the other. You start by identifying the events or event, then you move to the character or characters who are involved in that event, then you move to the actions or activities that the characters are involved in, then you look at the outcome or lesson from the action of the characters. So how best or how will this help us in our intensive reading? So we ask why, we ask ourselves, why do we do this episodic analysis? Why episodic analysis? So when we look at the why of episodic analysis, we are just asking ourselves, how does it help us as a learner? How does it help me as a learner or as a reader of a text to get to know better or to learn more or get more from this text? So one, we get to know the plot of the text. We get to know the plot, how things are moving. How are things moving in the story? Apart from knowing the plot, we also get to know the character traits of this, the characters who are within. So the characters traits. Remember, we've said we look at their actions and activities and how these influence others or themselves and the outcome of this. So then it means from what they say, what others say about them, from their actions or from their thoughts, we get to learn their traits. Another thing that we get to learn from there, we get to learn about thematic concern, the message that the author is trying to pass through. So thematic concerns. So within that event or within those events, we get to get the thematic concerns, what the author, the message that the author is trying to pass through, so that we are able not only to analyze or know the plot, but also to get more from that plot, go deeper, read between the lines. Then lastly, but not least, we get to learn about the way the author uses the language. So language use. And when we talk about language use here, I want it to come out as styles. So the styles that the author uses, or the language that he uses to pass that message. So ideally today, this is much that we learned today. We are going to look at chapter 1, but within that chapter 1, as I said, we are doing an episodic analysis. So within that chapter 1, we are going to pick one. I'm going to give an example of how to do one. Pick one event from the chapter, look at the character or characters who are involved, the actions and activities that they are involved in, then look at the outcome or lessons that we as readers get from those activities, or the lessons or outcome that the author intends us to get from that activity or that event. And how is that helpful? It's going to benefit in knowing the plot of the event or the story per se. We get to know the character traits, we get to know the thematic concerns, and then language use or the styles that the author uses. So let us pick one example, and I'll pick on the first event within the text, or the first event that takes place in the Blossoms of Savannah. So let me just share that. There's some presentation I'd prepared earlier on. Okay. We've already looked at that. And so I'll just do that. So what I've done here, I've actually looked at episode 1. So episode 1, we are seeing the author. The episode is introduction of Kaelo through Taiyo's eyes. Kaelo here is the father. So we are looking at, we are getting to learn of Taiyo. At the same, the author is introducing Taiyo and the father at the same time. But I'm picking on introduction of Kaelo because we are seeing it's Taiyo who is talking about the father. So the first event there is Taiyo's observation. What is her observation about what is taking place in her surrounding? Then who is the character involved? So the major character there is Taiyo. The minor character could be the father, the loaders, the other people were mentioned. So what is the activities that are taking place or in the Taiyo is involved in? She's involved in observation, she's involved in thinking, she's involved in reflection and flashback on current and past events. And then the father is also involved in some action. She's reprimanding, ordering the people who are parking there. But then what are the reactions of Taio? So the reactions of Taio, there's some unpleasant emotion, sympathy, agony. She's sympathizing with those loaders. This is just a typing error. It should be character trait. Let me just exit and correct that. Just correcting that. Okay. So we are not just, we are looking at more. We are looking at the character traits that come out from that episode or that event. For Taio, we get to know that she's sympathetic, she's stubborn, and she's observant. She's able to see what is taking place around her. And then another thing that we get to learn from the father is that the father is temperamental. The father is short-tempered. We see how she's reacting towards the loaders, and also from what happened in the past when she's become belligerent. Thematic concerns that the author brings out. The author is concerned about gender issues, the place of women in the society. From the start, Taio notices that there are women and men rushing to work. And then there's alienation and urbanization brought in together. And I just want to look at that thematic concern in details. So maybe we use our whiteboard again and just discuss the thematic concern and how they are brought out in details. So I'll just use, I don't know if we can get a new whiteboard there. Okay. So I'll look at thematic. And in the thematic concern, we get issues, gender issues, modernization, apart from modernization, there's alienation. In modernization, we also get to learn about rural-urban migration. And then we also learn on, we could say transportation, but it's still under modernization. So in modernization, there's alienation. It's what has caused alienation. People are moving from rural to urban. There's transportation. And here lorries, matatus are being mentioned. And so if we look at this modernization, then we could think that the author is even bringing in the idea of tradition. And so we get to learn more from this. We just get to learn, let me just highlight that. We get to learn more from this. So we realize that from just looking at one event, just Taio's observation, we get to learn more from the author. We get to learn more from the author. Then we also look at the language use. There's descriptive language use. There's flashback there that has been used. And then this is just now the summary of all things. When the observation, watching her surrounding, her thoughts about her father, and then reactions and the outcome. It is just the general thing now. But when you look at event 2, Taiyo's flashback, and in Taiyo's flashback, we are thinking, there are certain things still that are being brought forward to us. There's the memory of the botched music extravaganza. She's thinking, reflecting on the opportunity that she has lost. And she's giving us herself that she had a stubborn spirit and she fought. But see this where I've underlined with blue. It was predictable, and the father won. She was not able to win on what was going on. So what is the outcome of this? Still, the author is trying to show us that her trust on the father is lost. But the issue of father-daughter relationship, family relation, comes out so clearly. The issue on gender still comes out. Modernization comes out. So in this one episode of introduction of the father, Ole Kaelo, through the eyes of the daughter, Taiyo, we get to learn more. We try to unpack a lot. And in unpacking this, we get to learn the things that the author is trying to bring out for us. We get to learn on that from the event, we can learn of the characters. From the event, we can learn of the characters, what the characters are saying. We get to learn of the actions that are taking place and the outcomes here when we learn of the thematic concern. And I've just added one where we are saying that we are not, modernization comes with people, children, both boys and girls, being together, going for extravaganzas. So there's much that is brought when we do episodic analysis. Today I want to end the lesson, but just before I end the lesson, I want us to look at, let me just stop that. I want us to look at a task, okay, it's here, that there is an episode 2. So think of this episode 2, which I've said the event is Resian joining her sister Taiyo by the window. So think of the actions and activities that are taking place. Think of the outcomes there. Think of the characters who are involved, their character traits that are coming out. The thematic concerns, are they the same? Are they the same themes that we found out in the first event? Think of the language and the style that the author uses. And then you'll realize that there is so much that we get to learn when there's so much that we get to learn when we do an episodic analysis. So for today, I think we'll end from there. And we'll end from there. I hope to see you next in our next class. And in that next class, we'll be looking at what you did and what you did in the activity, the task that I've given. And I want to wish you a happy reading. And I know that you'll enjoy your intensive reading of Blossoms of Savannah and get to know the themes, the plot, the character traits, and as a whole, get to learn the text. It's bye from me until we meet again. Goodbye.